What's up, Nikolai? How's it going, man?
What's up, Sid?
This has been a long time coming. How's the semester been so far?
Amazing.
This is your first time in India, right?
Yes, first time in India,
Oh.
absolutely.
And did you always want to travel here, or was this just out
It
of the
was
blue?
very random. To be
Yeah?
honest with you, if it wasn't for the offer, I don't think I would ever
How
come.
How did we get in touch with you? I think it was through Karina?
Through Karina, I'm thinking.
Through
Karina was
Karina.
the first one who texted me. Yeah.
Right. And how's the experience been so far?
Amazing. I usually don't have any expectations before coming to a specific place, and I didn't have any expectations here. So it's much better in so many ways than I would think it would be. The community you're building here is amazing, and it's a pleasure, man. I'm so excited. Can I announce that I'll be back?
Yeah, of course. We've already announced it. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So
You just have a short return to Kazakhstan, and
3 weeks.
before
in
you get too
Kazakhstan.
comfortable, we'll get you back.
But it would be
here.
also very weird if I left right now, because I just got used to everything that's happening here.
Right.
And just coming back.
Yeah.
Just
Because
not familiar.
you've also been traveling to Chennai quite a bit, and you've kind of created one whole social scene there as well.
Yeah.
And I was telling the guys also, like, that's pretty important, to have that work-life thing going on where, because you kind of are locked up here for the weekdays
of
and
course.
teaching. How's the teaching been specifically?
The teaching, when it comes to teaching, I love teaching, right? So it's not like I'm doing something that's outside of my comfort zone necessarily. I'm invested into it, and the students show a lot of progress too. So if a student is prepared and a student does the job, then it's much easier for me. But it's been awesome.
Right. How important were the teachers that you had to where you are today?
A lot. I'm still trying to be in touch with all of my mentors. All of them would be impossible because I've studied in Russia first, and then I studied in the US at Berklee, and then you know how it is. You can change the professors and the mentors every single semester. But I try to be in touch with a lot of my mentors. Funnily enough, I started really appreciating the fact that I had certain mentors once I started teaching.
Right.
So, you really understand what effort it takes and what job they have really done in order for me to be where I am at the moment. So, I've tried to just reconnect with so many of them while actually being here in India.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And how did the whole Berklee thing happen with you? Like, I think you were in Moscow, you mentioned. And
Yeah, it was very random. The way my life looks to me, it's like I'm doing something and then my life leads me someplace else. It actually starts off from me studying Italian language.
Okay.
I never told you that, but I started learning Italian when I was 14 years old. And then because my parents, they would have money for me to, like, let's say, go once during a vacation somewhere. So they would be like, you have to choose. We can only afford you going someplace.
Sure.
And by the time I was already pretty serious with music, so I tried to combine my interest with the Italian language and the music. And so I found this program, which is called Umbria Jazz Clinics. And I went there. It's just like a 2 weeks kind of program, which is a Berklee organized program. It's like a camp. And
where is this?
in Italy,
Oh, okay.
in Umbria is the region. The city is called Perugia. So I went there, and in the first trip, in the same trip, I was able to pass the Italian language exam, and then I completed the program, and I got the full tuition scholarship at Berklee.
Oh, wow.
So I never actually applied to Berklee. That was
Right.
just out of, I went to the program, and I was the only one who got the full tuition scholarship, and therefore I went.
Amazing. And was it always jazz?
I started off as a classical musician. My family are classical musicians entirely. My grandmother is my first teacher. I was 5 years old when she was already teaching me how to play piano. My uncle is an incredible, very notable classical pianist to this very day.
Right.
I got to jazz when I was 14, and for my family it was like, you're doing something weird with
how
the
did
devil.
that,
Exactly.
how did that happen though?
Because when I was 14, something clicked in my head, and I realized I want to do music. Like, that was the time when I realized that music is the only thing that I want to do. So my parents were like, all right, well, let's find a certain solution, because obviously he has not been enjoying the classical music. So they got me to this teacher who was a jazz teacher, and he shifted my entire path, because he started teaching me jazz, and since then I'm in the jazz entirely.
Wow. And what would you say is, like, what kind of made you gravitate towards jazz music?
As opposed to classical music.
You sure? Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was either classical or jazz for the most part. Jazz is more free in so many ways. Because in classical music, not only the music itself, but the industry too, there's a certain way of who you have to be, which is defined by, let's say, at least a certain repertoire. the repertoire is always the same. The classical pianist always play the same repertoire. It's like always Rachmaninoff, always Beethoven. It's always this sonatas, this Bach's well-tempered clavier, or whatever. If you don't play that music, you're not even considered a classical pianist. So there's very little room for you to interpret even what it is that you play. Whilst in jazz, practically you choose who you want to be every single time you touch the instruments, which is the freedom of, there's many styles and you can be, you can just choose what it is you want to do, and that freedom is very compelling. But I also have a personal story, which is I had a certain injury with my muscles. And that was the moment where I realized I can't really do classical music on a high level as well.
Oh, you mean like technically?
Yeah. So I used to play like the etudes and studies of Liszt, which are very technically difficult piano pieces. But by the time I got injured, I was like, I can't even do that on a professional level anymore.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you another thing. Now today there was this random conversation happening at the cafeteria where we were discussing about class versus practice.
Class versus practice.
Yeah, like attending a music class versus having more time practicing. So there was someone who was talking about, Daivat was talking about how he did open schooling, right? And
which is what?
So open schooling in India is like, when you don't really go to a school, but you're schooled at home. I'm sorry, homeschooling.
Homeschooling.
Yeah, he was homeschooled, and he was like, that allowed him a lot more practice time. And I was like, would you prefer that at a place like Sam as well, where you have a lot lesser classes, but a lot more time to practice? As a teacher, what do you think?
Music, by the end of the day, is about the community still. So you can study the craft on your own. To be honest with you, YouTube is enough for you to obtain any profession you want to obtain. Right. And
but YouTube doesn't really give you feedback, right? Like,
well, to an extent, obviously. But my point, YouTube may not be in the picture.
Sure.
But like studying with a mentor and then having all the time to practice, you can possess the craft on a reasonably high level. But the school gives you community, and that community is something that you will go throughout your entire professional career, regardless of any other circumstance. So for me, I would still go with the school. I would still go with the classes with a bunch of necessary or unnecessary disciplines.
Sure.
But put the people who are trying to get to where they want to be together whilst on their own.
Another thing I kind of wonder a lot of the times is like just what you mentioned about the necessary and the unnecessary disciplines. Like for example, we have drummers here who are studying contemporary harmony. They're studying ear training and stuff like that. I sometimes think to myself, is that really necessary for them? I mean, is it coming to the point where even at a music school they are having to kind of learn stuff what they don't, because a lot of people come to music school to escape all that, So how was it at Berklee for you? Like, do you think the drummers there, they're having to study harmony, and how does it?
The level of musicians, I'm confident to say overall, is just there's more people, right? There's more students, but the general level is the same. Like considering the highest level and the lowest level, it's pretty much the same. So there would be a lot of drummers who know nothing about the music theory, and at the same time, there would be a lot of drummers who can sing and rap and compose and arrange and produce and everything, right? So as far as the importance of it in the music education in general, depending on your goals too, because obviously if you're learning a certain style like jazz, let's say, it is necessary for you to not only play the beats, but also hear the harmonic movement, because otherwise you will get lost within the form. And you won't be able to follow the form, right? Whilst in other styles where improvisation is not required, I'm not sure about rock, but rock seems like the improvisation is not really
in rock, honestly, even the guitar players half the time
see. But then you can only, like, let's say, do a certain job, remember where the form goes, and just kind of on autopilot produce that.
Sure.
So I would say it depends on the style or on your own goals.
Right. But okay, another thing is, like, when you went to study music, what expectations did you go with? What did you want your outcome to be after finishing music school?
Well, it changed throughout.
When you entered, what did you?
So when I went, I was still a little bit delusional about what music world is. Meaning, because before coming to Berklee, let's say, I was all about just me practicing, spending hours and hours and hours a day with my instrument. That was kind of my main concern. Like, have I learned this piece or have I not learned this piece?
Just like getting really,
exactly technique and skill, and I was just so obsessed and invested with the music that this. Like me and my piano.
Every musician goes through that phase.
And they have to.
Yeah, you have to.
And they have to.
Yeah, I mean, at least at some point of time through your music journey, you have to commit yourself just to the craft.
Yeah.
You know,
Precisely.
just to get, faster and cleaner. And,
we were just talking about this with Vishnu. And that's the bare minimum for you to enter a certain industry level. And then after you completed that bare minimum, then you can see what it is that you can do in music.
Right. And that's when what we call the soft skills come in. How well you network and how well, once you get the gig, how professional are you and stuff like that.
Yeah, so for me it was this. I was just invested with me practicing. That was the whole music world for me. Me and my piano. Once I entered Berklee, I realized that music industry and music just as a thing is much bigger than me. Right. So I started seeing what the music industry is in a way, and I realized that there's still a lot. I still have to grow, not in a like this way necessarily, but in a way to again be able to communicate and soft skills and trying to understand how I want to build my career. Get a big goal first and then try to divide it into many smaller steps. That's something that I really like. So that wasn't my expectation, but I learned that music is more difficult than I thought, practically.
If you could be a musician anywhere in the world, where would you want to be one?
Great question. Everywhere, planet Earth. Planet Earth.
No, I'm not going to let you go that. You got to pick one place.
Russia, to be honest with you.
Russia?
To be honest with you, Russia.
Right.
I'm biased because Russia is my home.
Sure.
But it's for me the industry is in the healthy, talking about the industry only, right? It's in the healthy kind of spot in between. There's a lot of talent, like too much, oversaturated amount of talent, and there's really nobody who can play. So Russia is in the middle, perfect middle. There's still a lot of room for you to do what you want to do, whilst there's a lot of musicians surrounding you that are also very talented.
Is there a jazz scene in Russia?
It's pretty big.
Wow.
It's much bigger than Moscow has like 5 jazz clubs, comparing to Boston that has only 2.
Okay, wow, now I feel stupid. Yeah, I don't know, I guess I was just stereotyping and assumed that all Russian pianists are like classical pianists.
Which, the Russian classical school is huge.
Yeah.
But the jazz music is big.
Right, even here, like you went, some Russian, it was called a Russian piano studio. Yeah.
Russian piano studio.
Yeah, it's a thing even here. So yeah, that's awesome.
Plus, a lot of Russian musicians, like classical musicians, are teachers everywhere, right?
Right.
In India included, I'm thinking. So many people would come to me and in Boston and say, "Oh, you're Russian. Actually, my teacher in Malaysia was Russian." I'm like, "Well, yeah, makes sense."
Yeah. Even I had gone to Dubai and I went to a bunch of music schools there. A lot of the classical piano teachers there are Russian too. Do you think that has something to do with like the culture? There, do you think it comes with the discipline of being Russian?
It is. I mean, you're laughing about it, but
no, I'm just laughing because I think I'm being stereotypical. I don't know.
It is true though, and I recently figured out how it works because we're used to think that the Russian, let's say, academic system is strong, and this is why there's so many incredible classical musicians. Now I found out how that really works. So the thing is, they really push you from the childhood, 5-7 years old. You're supposed to play Mozart sonatas and everything. So if you're not doing the job, they're gonna force you. They're gonna provide you the worst possible experience.
Wow.
And the best teachers are going to really make you feel very bad about what it is you do, right? So 90% of the people are not able to even go through that experience. And the 10% who are, it's like, it's a certain mindset. It's like, I'm going to get that no matter what. It's a certain sport. So that 10% are the best musicians in the world.
Yeah. No, I mean, to be fair, I don't mean to like bash on classical music or musicians. Even like in my world, like even in the metal community, a lot of the top musicians are classically trained. Like Yngwie Malmsteen changed the electric guitar forever. So I mean, I totally get that. There's it's definitely very influential even in modern music.
But you've never played classical.
I have never played classical. I don't think so. Not at all. Probably like I mean, at the level, so there's this thing called Trinity grade music grade system in India, where I think it's Trinity Guildhall, the Trinity College, London or whatever. So they basically have these grade books. There are these books for like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and they all have these pieces in them, and you kind of have to perform those in front of an examiner, and those are classical pieces. So I think I've done a couple of I've taught a bunch of those, but those are really rudimentary.
So
Not at a not at an advanced level at all. I would say at a very, very rudimentary level.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm guessing now your family is all cool with you playing.
Yeah, and it took them time. Took them time. They're like, all right, let's see where he's gonna go with this.
Right.
But I show commitments and I show progress. And at some point, my father like, all right, because in the beginning he was like, no, you first gotta get a certain profession, which is not music. And then
Sounds so Indian.
yeah. No, there's this pressure as well. And then I made it. I was able to prove to them in a way that what I'm doing is legit.
No, especially when you got the scholarship, it's like take that, dad. Like
Yeah, so many people at Berklee would say, "Oh, you saved your parents so much money." I go, I would never study at Berklee if it wasn't for the full amount. My dad would never pay for this.
Right. Yeah, I mean Berklee is pretty. I mean, for most Indians, it's out of reach,
impossible.
and for those that it is within reach, very few of them would go spend that kind of money to study music of all things.
Yeah. You would learn something that's more relevant to
medical,
money.
Like medicine
or finance
or law management
IT.
or things like that. Like musicians in India, that's the thing. More than like musician in India, music education in India itself, people aren't even aware. Even like Sam, when we speak to people, right?
Yeah,
we're not trying to convince them that Sam is better than, let's say, KM Conservatory or TSM or GMI or any of these other. We're just trying to tell them what is music education. We have to educate them that there's this thing called music education. There's this thing called a music career. Just like all other industries, you have jobs and positions and people working at all the different, behind the stage, in front of the stage, under the stage, after the stage. There's work everywhere.
And it's so funny to this very day because people interact with music every single day, and yet they never get a chance to think about what stands behind the production.
Exactly. You listen to an ad in your car, you don't realize that there's a producer involved, there's a
sound
session musician, there's sound engineers, there's mastering. There's a whole bunch of people that actually work for you to listen to that 20 seconds of voiceover artist. There's so many things. And they don't realize it.
No, it is part of it. Like you have to still prove to people that music education is a thing, and that we're not. See, maybe coming back to the point of does a drummer have to necessarily know that and that and that?
Sure.
This might also be a selling point as far as we're not just learning this particular craft, but we're learning this in a combination of things as a profession.
Right. Which brings me to the elective that you're taking. I think it's called
Artistry and Industry.
Artistry and Industry. Do you wanna maybe just tell me about that?
For me, I take this class, I would say, pretty seriously, and this class for me is something that I want to talk about, and I connect it to the artistry and industry in a way to how. So what we learn in class is mainly craft, music theory, performing skill, and such and such. For me, the main question is how do you take that to the next level? How do you start coming up with creative and artistic career decisions, right? So, for example, last week, we were talking about the roles of a sideman versus a role of a leader in a band. And I'm not implying that a certain role is better or worse, but I'm definitely trying to make the students think about what particular role you're trying to achieve, like what a particular role you're trying to choose in the industry as a professional playing musician, performing musician, because those roles have very specific like musical / personal characteristics that they require. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, this class is just exploring on a very broader way, exploring what the music is, what the music industry is, and what does it take to be an artist.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's lighten up. What's the funniest thing that's happened to you in India?
Funniest thing that happened. I mean, it is all cultural in a
Of
way,
course.
and I'm not trying to be
No, no.
offensive, obviously, but you know, for me was
We start
see
being
right now
offensive
I'm
now.
wearing the sandals,
Huh.
so I'm becoming Indian
Yeah.
slowly.
Also, when you said 5 minutes, because we were supposed to meet at 9, and you said I just need 5 minutes, so maybe we can meet at 9:10. I'm like, oh, that's so Indian. Like,
See, I'm slowly getting into
Yeah,
being
yeah.
an actual Indian. For me, it was very, very interesting to see students not wearing the shoes
Mm-hmm.
and the sandals while they play the piano. And the first classes, I'm like, why are your feet? Where's the shoes?
Why are your feet exposed?
Practically. And then later on, I realized that in Indian tradition, in certain
Yeah.
music, I'm saying Carnatic music
Yeah,
has that,
I mean,
right?
Yeah, not
In a
just for
way.
music. So feet in general, I don't. Honestly, I'm not even the right person to be. I don't think I should be like. I'm not an authority to be talking on this, but generally, feet are considered disrespectful. I think I'm not sure if that's the right word for certain things. Like if you have a book, you don't put your feet on the book. The book that you study, you don't put your feet on that.
The book.
When as a Hindu, when we go to a temple, we take off our footwear before we enter. So
Yeah,
it's kind of one of those things.
But then it's partially religious and partially cultural, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, yeah.
Well,
sure.
yeah, for me it was interesting to see, and then I realized that it's cultural, and actually it might even be good because students are showing respect towards the instrument,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we have something like this, and my mind would just be cleaning up the piano before playing it.
Right. So what's next for Nikolai Mischenko?
Good question. Right now, actually, I'm planning one performance in Kazakhstan. I just got my poster today.
Oh,
It's gonna be a solo
awesome.
piano.
Oh.
180 people in the audience. I mean, the capacity. Hopefully, I will sell the tickets. I'm also. I have some educational project in mind, and I'm going to record a certain start recording a certain music course when I'm in Kazakhstan as well, and then I'm back here, and then we'll see.
Yeah, of course you're back here. You have to be back here before the 11th of September, which is
Yes.
when our classes start. And it's going to be another awesome semester with you, and hopefully we get to do this again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Siddhartha. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
Awesome.